Hello and welcome back to the Tarkir Dragonstorm limited set review. In this video, I will be discussing the green cards and how good I think they're going to be in the limited format with a focus on draft. These are the 5 tiers I'll use to evaluate the cards. They're loosely based around when I expect to pick the cards in the draft. It's not an exact science. You can see the ranges here pretty broad, but it's kind of like an average type situation. If stuff averages out between these ranges, it's not an exact science. It's kind of based on vibes, but that's how we do things around here. It's a vibe based zone. And with that in mind, we're going to begin with Eniok Wayfarer, 1 and a green, 1/1. When it enters mill 3 cards, you may put a land card from among them into your hand. If you don't, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. So I like this a lot. I think milling yourself matters a lot in this format. I kind of want to just put this even higher. This card, we had basically this exact card in Brothers War, and it would have been a tier 3 card in that set. It was fine, but not premium. And I guess I would say milling is probably maybe slightly more relevant in green in this format than it was in Brothers War. Like Brothers War had the unearthed stuff going on, but the harmonized stuff is better to mill. It's more impactful out of the graveyard, and the land matters too. The fact that it's any land and not just a basic is nice. It finds your fixing more reliably. The format I expect to be slower. When you miss with this, they're gonna be kind of sad, and you do miss like 20% of the time. It's probably a little lower than that, 15% of the time, something like that, somewhere in that range. It does happen. You're depressed when that happens, and I think just that downside alone, I think, is enough for me to keep it in tier 3 instead of tier 2. But I'm pretty excited about this card. I think this is going to be pretty good. I expect to play this in pretty much every green deck. It would be the one deck that doesn't really want it, would be Abzan, but then the counters on it, so it's not that bad if you miss an Abzan. So it's kind of an interesting design for that reason. That kind of intrigues me. Attuned Hunter, 2 and a green, 3/3 trample. When one or more cards leave your graveyard during your turn, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. 3 mana 3/3 trample is like a surprisingly good stat line. It kind of is like sneaky good, because it wears tricks so well. And there's just not a lot of like cheaper creatures with trample. It's not an ability that goes on a lot of cheap creatures. But it's kind of like better than you'd think. It's like almost a better ability than Vigilance. Like I think like 3 mana 3/3 trample is better than a 3 mana 3/3 Vigilance in my eyes, because you it's just there's just a lot of ways that trample can end up mattering, where Vigilance just doesn't always. Like trample affects combat more than Vigilance does, if that makes any sense. Like there's more downside when you try to interact with something with trample than something with Vigilance. With all that being said, I this card seems kind of whatever to me. Yes, leaving your cards leaving your graveyard during your turn is going to happen at a reasonable frequency, um, and this will grow and it has to be dealt with. It's just pretty easy to deal with, and on turn is this going to start happening on turn 4? Probably not, right? So it's probably not going to be growing immediately. It's probably going to be growing on like turn 5, maybe turn 6, and that's good. Um, like this is a good card to me, but like I could see myself taking this card over this card. Like I could see that happening, and I've put them in the same tier as a result. Um, and maybe I'm too low on both of them. I could see that being the case. I like both of them. Both of these cards are appealing to me, but I'm quite kind of tempering the expectations a bit. Bloomvine Regent, 3 green, 4/5 flying dragon. Whenever it or another dragon enters, you gain 3 life, and it has an omen for 2 and a green. To search your library for up to 2 basic forest cards, reveal them, put one onto the battlefield tapped and the other into your hand, and shuffle. Ramp, I think, matters a lot in green in this set. I think Ramp is actually pretty good. I'm pretty happy to cast the Omen side of this on turn 3, and then the Dragon side of it is pretty good too. It's, a good 5-drop. Not really a whole lot to complain about with this. It's definitely a solid card. Yeah, like it a lot. Champion of Dusan. 2 and a green for a 4/2. It has trample and renew for 1 and a green. Exile this card from your graveyard, put a +1/+1 counter and a trample counter on target creature. Activate only as a sorcery. I really like this as a 3-drop. I think this might be the 3-drop we saw that grows. I think this might be better than that card in some spots. Like I could see that. You know, they both have trample. This one has 4 power, which matters a little bit, but not a ton. The fact that you get to give something +1/+1 and trample later, that's a lot. That's a lot of stuff for 2 mana, and it's a renewability. Those matter. It's 2 different types of counters. There's things that care about that. Yeah, I really like this card. I like all the green cards. So like all of green stuff, I'm just like I'm in. I'm in for all the green stuff. But yeah, I like this card. But there is still the caveat of hey, this is still a 3 mana 4/2 trample, and we've seen that not be super fantastic in the past. But this has a lot of value associated with it, and I really like it. Craterhoof Behemoth, 5 green, 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 5/5 haste. When this creature enters, creatures you control gain trample and get +X/+X until end of turn, where X is the number of creatures you control. It's a reprint. It's a cool reprint. Cool to have this legal in Standard, Pioneer. All that good stuff. It may already have been legal in Pioneer. I don't actually know, but I like when they reprint iconic cards like this in formats where it kind of makes sense. And this is kind of the perfect spot to do this. This is kind of like my preferred way of doing, like, not to go off on a really weird tangent about like the state of Magic print runs, but like this is kind of my preferred way to do this instead of doing like, you know, having it kind of be like feel like forced, you know what I mean? Like this doesn't feel forced at all. It kind of feels like, oh, they reprinted Green Behemoth, that's really cool, as opposed to like some of the other stuff where it's like, oh, you did this because it's like that's part of the supplemental product or whatever. But yeah, so it's cool. It's a 5. It's a game ender. It ends the game when you cast it. It's not. It's 8 costs 8 mana, so there's a ceiling to how good it can be. But I think it's a great finisher, and it's gonna win the game 99% of the time that you actually cast it. Dragon Sniper, single green, 1/1, reach, vigilance, death touch. So this is an interesting one. It doesn't really. I'm kind of 2 minds about it because it plays really bad against the like tokens decks, right? Like any deck that's trying to make tokens. So all the black-white decks. Jeskai maybe doesn't really care so much about this. That's whatever. I it kind of feels a little low impact to me, where it's like, does this actually attack all that well? Eh. It does have a reach. That's nice. That's quite nice. That's a good thing. It is, as the name implies, it's pretty good against dragons. I just think there's like the fact that Twin Bolt exists in the set really, I think, hurts this a lot, because sometimes you just get like 2-for-1 with this thing in play and just a disaster. I don't know. It wears counters okay. It kind of like is deceptively bad at wearing counters. Like Death Touch doesn't really care about you having counters on this. Reach does. Vigilance doesn't really at all though. So it's kind of like Reach is the part of this card that really wants the counters because it blocks better. Obviously Vigilance helps on the blocks or whatever. Like but it doesn't care. Like if it was Trample instead of Vigilance, it would be better at wearing the counters. If it was Lifelink instead of Reach, it would be better at wearing the counters. I know they don't really do a ton of Lifelink in green, but um, yeah, it just kind of feels a little bit like out of place to me. But this is another one of those ones where I'm like, I could be wrong about this. This is one of those ones where I'm like, hey, format context. Hey, if those token decks are really bad and the best decks are all green decks with big dudes and dragons matter a lot, then this could certainly be a good card. I'm worried about it just not slowing down your opponent as much as you want it to. Dragon Brood's Relic. 1 and a green artifact. You can tap it and tap an untapped creature you control to add 1 mana of any color, and you can pay 3 and Wooburg, so 8 total mana, to sacrifice it to make a 4/4 dragon that has flying, lifelink, and when it enters, it deals 3 damage to any target. And you activate only as a sorcery. So this is very reminiscent of the card from Kaldheim that I can't remember the name of, but basically was this, except that you could tutor a basic, and then it was a similar ability that was a little less impactful for a cheaper mana cost. It was 1 mana cheaper. The problem with this is that you have to tap your creature to add the mana, and you have to, like, this is not functional by itself, is the problem. If this was functional, like, if this had was just the Kaldheim thing, plus you get the ability to do the dragon thing. The sacrifice ability is real. That's very real. It's very cool. You're going to be able to do it in the set. The reason I have this in tier 4 is I don't think this is. I just don't think this is helping you, keeping you afloat. You know what I mean? As well as the Kaldheim enchantment did. The reason, like the Kaldheim enchantment, you were up, like you were card neutral, right? This is putting you down a card to put this on the battlefield. But it ramps you, but it doesn't really ramp you because you're having to tap. It turns one of your creatures into a mana elf. Is that ramp? Sorta. If you have creatures in play, and you're gonna want to have creatures in play, but this is 2 mana. Are you really gonna use it? Use your 2-drop for this? The sacrifice ability is really powerful and good, and I think that this card in, if the format plays out a certain way, is going to be very, very premium. Like, I could definitely see this being great. I'm starting low because it has the requirement of needing to tap a creature. Green's creatures, not usually amazing for that purpose. Like, in this set, there's not a ton of, like, all the token stuff is in, like, white-black. It does fix your mana, but this feels a little too slow to me. And that could be wrong, because again, the effect of paying 8 to do the backside of this is quite good. And it is rampy. Maybe we should move it up. Maybe I should move. I had it higher originally, and I moved it down because I realized it was card disadvantage. But I'm trying to talk myself into moving this back up, because it's one of those ones that it's like kind of embarrassing when you like get this one wrong in the set review. Like, this is one of those cards. It's like, how could you not have foreseen this being like great? And it's just like, it sure does nothing when it enters the battlefield. There's no artifact synergies in the set at all. But it is inevitable. It's inevitability. You do care about mana. Tapping your creatures is kind of an interesting little effect. It does fix. I'm just worried about getting run over with this. I really am worried about getting run over. I'm gonna move it up 1 tier to put it in the cowards tier instead of tier 4. I'm gonna put it in tier 3. A very cowardly rating, as many of my green ratings have been so far. A lot of tier 3 ratings for me. A lot of cowardice going on in the ratings so far. That will change, but I'm talking myself into it, right? I'm talking myself into, well, you're not always tapping your biggest creature. This does make mana. The sacrifice effect is really powerful. It's going to be achievable. The fixing probably matters more than I'm giving it credit for. And if the format is a little on the slower side, I think this will be good. And if the format is on the faster side, this will be really bad. Duist Earthcarver. 5 and a green, 4/4 reach. When it enters, it endures 3. So you can make it a 7/7 reach, or you can make a 4/4 and a 3/3 for 6. I should just put this at tier 2. I should just do it. This is closer to. I mean, this is good, right? Like, this is a card. Let's not be disrespectful of the thing that just makes 7 power and toughness for 6 mana. With reach. Reach is fantastic. So yeah, modality's nice. Everything about this is good. Yes, I don't like rating 6 mana cards this high, but I think this is gonna be good. So I'm believing in it, and if I end up being wrong and it's a tier 3 card, then I'm gonna be sad. I guess it's kind of like, how good was Ketradon a tier 2 card? Yeah, Ketradon ended up being a tier 2 card, right? I would say so. So I think this could end up being in that same ballpark. Encroaching Dragonstorm, 3 and a green enchantment. When it enters, search your library for up to 2 basic land cards, put them onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle. When a dragon you control enters, return this enchantment to its owner's hand. This looks fantastic to me. Um, I have consistently underrated this effect for a long time at this point. The last time I got it close to right was in March of the Machine with that battle that turned into a 4/4. But I've been like wrong to the like I've been too low on these for a very long time. 4 mana like put 2 lands into play stuff. I've just been like, oh, it doesn't impact the board, it's bad. It's like, no, it draws you 2 cards and puts 2 lands on the battlefield, and then next turn you're at 6 lands minimum. It's like, okay, that's pretty good. This one, how much does it matter when you cast it the second time? It's still good. It's still good. Like, you're really going over the top when you cast this the second time. So I think it's still good, and the first cast of it's really all that matters to me. So I think I'm in for this. Formation Breaker, 1 and a green, 2/1. Creatures with power less than this creature's power can't block it. As long as you control a creature with a counter on it, this creature gets +1 and +2. So this is going to be a 3/3 in the mid to late game, but not a 3/3 on turn 2 all the time. But sometimes, this gives you an incentive to use your Endure payoffs to, like, put a counter on the thing instead of making a second token, which is interesting. 2 mana 3/3s are good. I don't know. The text, like, creatures with power less than this creature's power can't block it. It actually, like, it kind of manifests in, like, weird, annoying ways that you wouldn't expect in a lot of spots. So I like this. I like this 2-drop. Yes, it requires enabling, but there's so many counters and there's so many ways to do counters that even though on turn 2 this isn't going to be a 3/3 very frequently and it doesn't block like a 3/3, and yes, it trades off early, I still think it's a decent 2-drop. And for that reason, I'm putting it in tier 2. Which, again, this is one of those ones that's like I could be too high on, but I just like it. I don't know. Herd Heirloom, 1 and a green artifact. Add 1 mana. So you can tap it to add 1 mana event any color. Spend this mana only to cast a creature spell. And you can tap it until end of turn. Target creature you control with power 4 or greater gains trample, and whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. This looks sweet. Not all of your spells are going to be creatures, right? Like that. This isn't just a mana lock, but the fact that you are going to get some mana out of it, it does fix a little bit, and it just has a relevant ability that, like, if your opponent ever taps out, you're going to be able to draw a card like frequently, and the giving trample is huge. If it didn't give trample, I would not like this nearly as much, but it does. It gives trample. It goes the extra distance. This is a strong card. I could even bump this up to tier 1. The only reason I'm not is because it only casts creatures. That's the piece of it that I'm like, there's going to be some spots where you're like, really wish this cast anything at all, and it just doesn't. So that scares me. But because green does have some powerful spells, and all the colors do. But yeah, this is good. This is great. Great card. Heritage Reclamation, 1 and a green instant. Choose 1, destroy target artifact, destroy target enchantment, exile up to 1 target card from a graveyard, draw a card. I think this is main deckable in this set. I just don't think you need to take it that high. All of the modes are probably going to be relevant. It's really bad if you ever run into like an actual aggro deck, so probably not worth really playing in the main. But if the format ends up being real slow and the aggro decks suck, then sure. But I'm starting lower on it. It's a flexible card that you can main deck your enchantment, artifact, whatever. Seems decent. Inspirited Vanguard. Wow, that's a word. 4 and a green for a 3/2. When this creature enters or attacks, it endures 2. So I wanted to like this card more, but it's really small. Like, it's not large. It's 5 mana for a 3/2 and a 2/2. How good is that? It's fine. And then it attacks as either a 5. Like, you could make it a 5/4 for 5. That's just really a nightmare. Like, that rate is horrible, though, right? Like, 5 mana for a 5/4 is really bad. 5 mana for a 3/2 and a 2/2, that's okay. And then attack. Does it like I still think this is fine because it has the potential to like go off, but I'm not taking this over the mill common. I don't think I'm taking this over that mill common in green. I really don't think that I am. And for that reason I'm not that excited about it. So I think it's fine, but I'm not. I could even see moving it down. I could move it even further down. It does threaten. It is threatening. It is threatening to make more stuff. So I do think that warrants a rating in tier 3, but I'm not that excited about it. Knockout maneuver. 2 and a green sorcery. Put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. Then it deals damage equal to its power to target creature opponent controls. This style of effect is very, very strong. We've seen it be strong before. The set cares about counters more than a lot of sets where this is in the set. So yeah, I don't know. This is just a great card. We've seen this be good for every time they've ever printed it. I know it's a sorcery and not an instant. That's fine. I don't need it to be an instant. It doesn't have to be as good as the one from MH3 to be great. Krotik Nest Guard, 2 and a green for a 4/4 defender. You can pay 2 and a green to make it attack as though it didn't have defender. This is pretty bad. It doesn't even have reach. Though it is kind of big. It's 4 power and toughness for 3 mana. You can attack with it in the late game. I don't think it's completely unplayable. But I'm not excited about it. It's enough stats that I'm like, okay, fine. Yeah. I don't know, there's nothing exciting about this card, really. Lacid Prowler. 2 green green 5/5. When it enters, you may mill cards equal to the number of lands you control, so 4 lands usually. You can renew for 1 and a green. Exile this card from your graveyard. Put X +1/+1 counters on target creature where X is the number of lands in your graveyard. Activate only as a sorcery. I don't know. This looks broken to me. It's a 4 mana 5/5 that mills you for 4 when it enters the battlefield, and then it also, when it dies, you just get another effect that puts like 3 counters on something on average. Pretty good. I don't know. Maybe 2 counters on average. Let's not get over our skis here. I don't know. This is great. This is just a lot for 4 mana. So I don't have a lot to say, frankly. A Nature's Rhythm, X green green, sorcery. Search your library for a creature card mana value X or less, put it onto the battlefield, and then shuffle, and you can harmonize for X green 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 green. Nope. The harmonized mode is way too expensive. You have to pay 4. Also, 4 green pips is not. That's not. That's a no. That's not gonna happen. In a high percentage of games, even like 50% of games, you're not gonna get to 4 green pips. So like in a 3-color format, that's bad. And then like the front side of this is just you're essentially demonic tutoring for a creature, but you have to also cast the creature the same turn. That's not good. Demonic tutor is mid already, and this is just way, way too expensive. Yeah, don't play it. Piercing Exhale. 1 and a green instant. As an additional cost to cast the spell, you may behold a dragon. Target creature you control deals damage equal to its power to target creature Planeswalker. If a dragon was beheld, surveil 2. So, great value on the behold here, right? This is, very good. I don't think it's quite as good as like the black one that makes it cheaper, or the blue one that makes it more fat. Like, I don't think this is the most like impactful in terms of what the card is doing up front, right? But the value is the most value you get for the behold of a dragon. And green is historically doesn't have a ton of dragons, but in this set is going to have the same number as probably every other color, I imagine. Maybe a little bit less than red, but or some of the other color, like whatever. But you're gonna have a decent amount of dragons. Without the dragon, this is still good. Like good, it's fine. This will be probably green's best common, I would guess. No, maybe not. We'll see. There's the guy coming up that might be better, but it's gonna be a good removal spell. Rainveil Rejuvenator, 3 and a green, 2/4. When this creature enters, you may mill 3 cards, and you can tap it to add an amount of green mana equal to this creature's power. So we've seen these like 4 mana ramp creatures before, and they tend to be not ideal. This one at least mills you when it enters, so it does something. But these just die pretty easily. There's the red 2 mana deal 4. That seems like a nightmare. Um, at least this dodges the black common with it deals -3/-3. I don't know. These just don't excite me that much, but this is fine. Right of Renewal, 3 and a green sorcery. Return up to 2 target permanent cards from your graveyard to your hand. Target player shuffles up to 4 target cards from their graveyard into their library. Exile Right of Renewal. This is like fine. It's a really expensive way to get your stuff back. The value in this card, like yes, if you're like you can be like, all right, well I'm gonna make my opponent shuffle back 4 of their cards that they don't want to be in their graveyard. Okay, that's fine. Upside. I just do we really need like do you need to do this? These like the fact that it has to be permanence. All of it just kind of seems a little bit meh to me. Not to say that this is unplayable. Like, this is kind of a not as bad as some of the tier 4 cards, but it's also like in terms of like how good the card is when you cast it. It's just kind of like not as premium. Like it's just like, do you really need this? Probably not. Like you could probably get away with never playing this and you'll probably be fine. But I think it's gonna be fine. Like it's fine in some decks. I just don't know how much you really care. Roamer's Routine, 2 and a green, sorcery, search your library for a basic land card, put it onto the battlefield tapped, shuffle, harmonize, 4 and a green. So, how good this card is going to be really comes down to how good that harmonize mode is. 3 mana, sorcery speed, get a basic on the battlefield. Flat bad. Flat not very good. How good is the harmonize mode? I've been back and forth on this card. And how good I think it'll be. Like sometimes I'm like, ooh, I like this a lot, and then sometimes I'm like, I don't like this a lot. Yes, ramp. This seems like a set where ramp is going to be good. Ramp is going to be quite good even. Fixing is going to be important. This fixes and ramps. Those are 2 really important things. Green seems like it's probably the best color. I don't know. That's my take early, is like green's probably the best color. If green's the best color, this card's gonna, be pretty good at doing what green wants to do, right? So that's something to think about. Do I want to move it a little higher? At the end of the day, it's no board impact for 3 mana. So that scares me. Yeah, that's why I'm leaving it. It's because of the no board impact for 3 mana. But I don't know. It would not shock me. This ends up being great. It's not going to shock me. Sage of the Fang. 2 and a green, 2/2. When this creature enters, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. And you can renew it for 3 and a green. Exile this card from your graveyard, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature, then double the number of +1/+1 counters on that creature. Activate only as a sorcery. So you put at least 2 counters, and sometimes it's going to be a bunch of counters on this. Yeah, this is just a good 3-drop, right? 3 mana 3/3 that when it dies gives you extra value later out of the graveyard. Sounds good to me. All the cards that you like can mill over just are inherently, especially the ones that you can mill over and when you cast them they're still like fine. Those are like really good because it makes your mill common like much better and whatever. Again, the more cards you have with Renew in your deck, the better that 2-drop gets in green. Sagu Pummeler. 3 and a green, 4/4, reach, renew for 4 and a green. Exile this card from your graveyard, put 2 +1/+1 counters and a reach counter on target creature. Activate only as a sorcery. This, I think, is probably my actual pick for green's best common. There's so many that you could choose from. This one, I mean, 4 mana 4/4 reach is just a great card, and then this one is like, oh, well, you killed my 4 mana 4/4 reach. I'm going to pay 5 mana to make something else a 4/4 reach. Eat that. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, like that's. This is just a nightmare. This thing is a complete nightmare. I don't really know how you ever beat this. Like it's so good. It's just the best. I don't know. It's the best. It's the best of the things. Like your opponent plays this and you're in the blender. You're like, I don't really want to kill that. I don't really want to spend a removal spell to kill that thing. Because it's just more value. It's more value on the back end. And on the front end, it's like, well, it literally blocks everything. So what am I gonna do? It's like, well, I hope you have an exile spell. And yeah, that's it. This card is just pray that you have an exile spell because what a beast. Another banger, Sagu Wildling, 4 and a green, 3/3 flying. When this creature enters, you gain 3 life, and has the omen to search your library for a basic land card, reveal it, put it into your hand, and then shuffle. Excellent. It's a great omen card because it thins out your deck, meaning that when you draw the Wildling the second time, you can play it. This is also just a card you can replace lands with this because it's a single green to go fetch a land. You can treat it as a tap land as long as you have 9, but preferably 10 green sources that are untapped on turn 1. It's a little bit more murky in this set. You probably don't really want to be doing that a ton because the set wants to incentivize you to play more lands because there's more big stuff. But also you want to play more lands because the omen stuff shuffles back in, so then your land spell ratio is kind of. I don't need to do this, but yeah, this card it's sweet. This card is really sweet. I don't know. It's not as good as the previous card, but it really helps grease. Like just kind of it's great at everything it does. 5 mana 3/3 flyer that comes in, gains you 3 life. That's pretty good. It's not great, but it's pretty good. And you're just fixing your mana, like making your mana good. I love this card. Sarkhan's Resolve. 1 and a green for an instant. Choose one. Target creature gets +3/+3 until end of turn, or destroy target creature with flying. I need to up this. This needs to move up. There's too many creatures with flying in this set for this not to be good. This is actually good. 2 mana +3/+3 is not that great though. But I mean, Plummet with a combat trick on the other end of it is in a set where dragons is the thing that you're doing. I like it. I mean, I don't know why that says regions. That's interesting. That's what that was supposed to say. Um, Sometimes we catch those and sometimes we don't. It's fine. The show moves on. I don't know. This just looks great to me. I don't think it's premium, and I should. So I just moved it up to tier 3 because of the amount of dragons. But like the second copy of this, are you really that jazzed? Not really. But I don't know. This looks kind of sick, man. Like you're looking at like the thing. Like I don't know. I love it. I love it. Okay. Call me a green enjoyer. Snakeskin Veil, single green, instant. Put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control against hexproof until end of turn. I moved this down. I had it in tier 2 and I moved it down, and I think I'm going to move it back up because of the amount of stuff that cares about having. It's not that in green specifically. There's not as much. This card also it's been kind of mid lately. It's one of those cards where tier 3 is not indicative of the card strength. I'm going to leave it in tier 3 by the way. It's not indicative of how strong the card is. It's indicative of where you take it in the pack because it has diminishing returns. Like the third copy of Snakeskin Veil, it can be tough. It can be a tough time, right? And so that's why it's here. Where like the third copy of that 4/4 reach, I'm just jamming. I'm just jamming the third copy of the 4/4 reach. Whereas this, like, I'm not just jamming the third copy of Snakeskin Veil, right? So that's where I think the tier 3 rating kind of comes from. It's not from like the first copy of this is a tier 2 card, right, in your deck. I feel that way even in this set. But the second copy is kind of tier 3. Third copy is like tier 4. It kind of like deteriorates 1 tier per copy of it you have, unless it's like really busted, which has happened at times. And it's gonna have a high win rate, right? It's one of those commons that will have a really high win rate because you just can't play the like I don't know how to say this correctly. It's hard to have the exact right number of them, right? Like the first copy of it's so good. And if everybody kind of has one copy, its win rate's going to be really high. But if everybody kind of is like part of the reason you draft removal early in drafts is because everybody takes removal highly, right? If everybody in the like there's a consensus belief that removal is important and so you have to take removal early, and it is important. But part of the reason it's important is that other people believe it's important. So you have to take it early because other people will take it early and then you won't get any of it. But it's not necessarily on the merits of strength of the removal spells, right? It's more on the merits of, hey, I need this thing for my deck, right? I need this thing as a component of my deck for it to be functional, and other people value this thing very highly. So I have to take it highly, even if I don't think on a rate basis it's as strong as this like thing that isn't a removal spell. Other people do, and I still need to have it in my deck. Snakeskin Veil is kind of the opposite, where everybody kind of agrees that this is a good card, but everybody also kind of agrees we're not going to be first pick in Snakeskin Veil. We're not going to do it. We're just not going to do it. Even though the first copy of it probably warrants that, right? We all kind of know this. Not everybody, not we don't all know this, but I would say that the consensus is Snakeskin Veil. If you said you're never going to see another Snakeskin Veil in the draft, would you first pick a Snakeskin Veil? The answer for me would be yes sometimes, right? Like sometimes I would do that if I was told that I would never see one again for the entire rest of the draft. But that's not really how it works. And so everybody's kind of in this weird like reverse like chicken scenario where everybody's like, I could take the Snakeskin Veil, but I don't really want too many of them, and everybody else, we all kind of agree that they're not that valuable, so we're not going to take them as high as maybe we should. So they're going to kind of slide a little bit, and I kind of don't want to take it now. Like on pick, like I don't really want to take this pick 3. I could maybe get one on pick 6, and then I'm getting good value. So it's kind of this reverse removal spell effect that Snakeskin Veil has, which makes it really hard to evaluate using my tier system because my tier system isn't about necessarily strength. It's more about like when you draft it. So it makes it hard. Like Snakeskin Veil is a card that kind of doesn't. It kind of breaks the system a bit, which is okay. It gives me room to talk about it like this when I go on like a 5-minute tangent on Snakeskin Veil. But yeah, the long and the short of it is Snakeskin Veil is a good card. I just don't. It rates a little bit lower in this system than it will in some other people's, and that's okay with me. Sultai Devotee, 1 and a green for a 2/1 with Death Touch, and it has the ability to filter 1 mana into one of the Sultai colors. You can activate that once each turn. I like this. Death Touch makes it relevant into the mid late game. We just saw how good a 2 mana 2/1 Death Touch is in the mount from Ether Drift. That is shows its relevance into the mid to late game. Now, is this going to be quite that good? I've rated it as about where I would rate that card. Maybe I would put that card in tier 2, but I'm not sure that I would. Maybe I would. I don't know. At this point in the format, I think I might for Ether Drift, but that's neither here nor there. It is kind of a bit there though. It's not really here though. Yeah, I mean Sultai actually cares about this more than some of the other fixers, but it is green, so it's like the opportunity cost is like there's other fixing in greens. Like, do you need to play this? Maybe not. Definitely don't need to draft this super high. These are going to go late-ish, and yeah, this card is non-offensive and also not exciting. It just kind of exists, and I think I will play a certain number of them. The one thing to call out with it is it doesn't block the 1/1 tokens at all, which is a problem, but that's the thing keeping me from really liking it. Surrak, Elusive Hunter. 2 and a green, 4/3, can't be countered. It has trample, and whenever a creature you control or a creature spell you control becomes the target of a spell or ability an opponent controls, draw a card. That's kind of a nightmare. Anyway, it has the Nadu text on it, basically. Now it's only stuff your opponent controls. I wonder why that is. Now it's not because of Nadu. They wouldn't have printed. Anyway, this card's sick. This card's great. It does have that text. This is just it's a 3-mana 4/3 beater that when your opponent removes it, you draw a card. Cool. I don't really have a whole lot to say about it. This is gonna be the ultimate like, I got my blue counter spell up on turn 2. Opponent's gonna get their 3-drop countered on the draw, and then they play this, and you're just like, well, now I lose. So that is gonna happen to me at least once in this format, and I will crash out. I'm gonna crash out. You're never gonna see me again. Synchronized Charge, 1 and a green for a sorcery. Distribute 2+1/+1 counters among 1 or 2 target creatures you control. Creatures you control with counters on them gain vigilance and trample until end of turn. Harmonize for 4 and a green. You know, is tier 4 too low for this? Am I too harsh? I hate these effects. This is a travel preparations style of effect. I am a noted travel preparations hater. I think that card sucks. People love that card. Its win rate was abhorrently bad when it was on the flashback. It wasn't that bad. It was like a tier 3 card, but I hate it. I still hate it. The thing about this though is it gives everything with trample and vigilance. So I am going to move this up actually. I do think this is actually The fact that it gives trample and you can cast it twice, I gotta move it up. I gotta move it up. I have to move it up. I do. I simply have to move it up. Another tier 3 card in green. Wow, amazing insight in this set review. Really just put all the cards in tier 3. That's fun. Yeah, no, okay. Like, get mad at me. This happens with green, like, every format, by the way. Like, literally every format, it's just like, all the green cards are, like, kind of good. You know what I mean? It's like, they're all kind of good. I don't know. Like, whatever. Um, that's fine. But the thing to call out is obviously, again, not a creature. So it's hard to take this that high. Like, would I take this or the the even the Sultai Devotee? Would I take that over this? Maybe. I could see that happening. Like, I'm not taking this over any. Like, I'm taking this after I take the 1/1 that mills. This is worse than that card, but it is. I mean, think about it, right? Like this, it makes what like you could just put this on one creature, gets vigilance and trample, probably hits for 4, pretty good. It gets counters like the harmonize, and then it helps cast itself on the backside. And I think I think that's probably enough to be decent. I do. I think I should. I think I should respect. I think I should respect this card. I'm respecting it, even though I hate it. I respect it. Trade Route Envoy. 3 and a green, 4/3. When this creature enters, draw a card if you control a creature with power with a counter on it. If you don't, draw a card this way, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. Yeah, this is kind of whatever. In the counter decks, in the decks that are all in on the counters, this will be really good. It's not even that bad by itself, right? Like 4 mana, 5/4. How bad is that? It also comes with a counter. Is that even that bad? It's not. It's fine. It's not like 4 mana 5/4 would probably be a tier 4 card, but you could play it and it's not so bad, and this has upside. So I think you're gonna have counters on your stuff around half the time, and that's probably good enough for me for this to be tier 3. It's not nearly as good as the white common that just draws a card every single time you cast it and costs 4, but I mean it doesn't cost 4, but we all know it costs 4. Okay, we all know that card costs 4 mana. This card also costs 4 mana. But yeah. Traveling Botanist, 1 and a green, 2/3. When this creature becomes tapped, look at the top card of your library. If it is a land card, you may reveal it and put it into your hand. If you don't put it into your hand, you may put it into your graveyard. I mean, this is sick, right? This is an absolute beast. So on turn 2, it's a 2/3. There are not that many of them. In Ether Drift, there were just a lot of 2/3s for 2 for some reason. I don't know why they printed so many of them. There are not nearly as many of them in this format. Even at the higher rarities, there are a lot of 2/2s. So this actually attacks pretty well on turn 3. Unlike an Ether Drift where you just never attacked on turn 3 because everything was a 2/3. This doesn't really have that same problem in this format. And it doesn't matter whether it can attack or not, because you can just harmonize with it, and then it is tapped, and then it enables harmonize, and then whatever. Yeah, so on turn 3, this attacks. It's a 45% chance for you to draw a card. Okay, sick. If you don't draw a card, you get to surveil one. Okay, cool. And then if you surveil something with harmonize, guess what? Turn 4, you can probably cast your thing with harmonize with this, and then you get another chance to draw a card. It's like this is just, I mean, this looks unbelievable to me. This just looks really, really powerful. I don't know. I don't know what to say about this card. It's very good. Undergrowth Leopard. 1 and a green, 2/2. Vigilance. You can pay 1 and sacrifice it to destroy a target artifact or enchantment. This is fine. It's not a great 2-drop. You're not going to be excited about it, but you will play it. And this is like there are a lot of enchantments in the set that are very strong, so I think it's going to be annoying when it's on the battlefield sometimes, but it's not. There's nothing premium about this card. Nothing exciting about this card. And the last green card, Warden of the Grove. 2 and a green, 2/2. At the beginning of your end step, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. Whenever another non-token creature you control enters, it endures X, where X is the number of counters on this creature. So this is kind of weird, right? So 3 mana for basically a 3/3. If your opponent has a removal spell, it just does nothing. Okay, whatever. It was a 3/3 that didn't do anything. If your opponent doesn't have a removal spell, it gives you a 1/1 the first turn, and then a 2/2 the next turn, and whatever. It's a little slow, but It's powerful. It's a threat that has to be answered, or it's going to run away with the game. Plain and simple. And those are strong cards. This one, it needs a little bit of help. It needs enough help that I'm kind of like shaky on it. Like I'm like, is this is this really exciting? It is exciting. It's an exciting card, but it's just like it does just die to removal. It does take it. Even the first if it survives one turn, it's not even a nightmare. It's not even a complete disaster if it survives one turn, right? You get an extra 1/1. Okay, all right. The game continues. The game continues. So it's it's good, but I don't think it's completely busted. And that is it. That's it for green. I'm excited about green. I was so excited about green that I talked for like 5 minutes about Snakeskin Veil for some reason. I don't know why I did that, but I did. So if you enjoyed that, there's other set review content on this channel, um, and I would recommend that you go check it out. See you.